Join us for another exciting episode at the home of spine-tingling research, the Knowledge Hub. Welcome to this episode of the Knowledge Hub South Africa, the podcast dedicated to bringing spine-tingling research out of the ivory tower and making it accessible and visible not only to fellow academics, but also to the broader public. We aim to bridge the gap between scholarly work and real-world impact by drawing academics into discussions in society and the marketplace. Today, we have the privilege to talk to Professor Erna Oliver from the University of South Africa. Welcome, Erna.
Thank you.
Well, you started school, you matriculated at Oosmoed High School in 1980 in Pretoria, and then you decided to start studies in theology. What drew you to study theology?
I came from a very religious family. My father was an elder in the church and he was also the headmaster of the Sunday school. My mom was always active in the Women's Society, and we had two ministers who actively knew how to work with children. They would always speak to us, ask us how things go, and give us some tasks, and even allow us to participate in the events of the church. So when I got my matric certificate, one of the pastors asked me what I'm going to do. I said, I don't know. So he said, where are you going to study? I said, that didn't cross my mind. So the next day he called me and said, if you can study anything on earth, what would it be? And by that time, Jolanda Dreyer just finished her training and she was allowed to be a minister in the church. So without any hesitation, I said, theology, please. Well, everybody was a bit shocked, but within a day, that minister managed to get me a registration, a bursary, and some books from his shelves to start reading and working. And I must say, I never looked back.
Well, you did extremely well, so you got most of your degrees cum laude, so, and that's quite impressive. So what were the key theological questions or areas that captivated you in those formative years?
I have always been interested in history. When I was small, I looked at the Dutch Bible from my grandfather, and I would turn the pages, the front cover page and the back cover page was script, full of scripts, handwritten scripts from people, and he would tell me stories. So it was nice to do history. And then when I get to the BD degree, by that time, me and Willem, who I later married, was already dating. And he was in the Nederduits Gereformeerde section of the Faculty of Theology at the University of Pretoria. But myself, I was in the Hervormde Kerk. So we compare histories. And I think I see you smile, so you can imagine that the histories were not the same. And you can imagine the debates that Willem and I had. I would go talking and screaming and flying my arms everywhere, and he would just sit down, check me out, and then counter everything that I say. So I had to learn to think critical, to think analytical, to think quickly on my feet, and then also to be open-minded. And I think that is why church history, in particular, was so great for me to study.
Well, after that, your graduation, you spent 10 years in a congregation in ministry. So can you tell about that decade and what particularly interested you in that area, time of your life?
Willem and I worked together in the congregation. And
in which part of the did you go into the Dutch Reformed or the Hervormde congregation?
we managed to draw Willem to the Hervormde church. Obviously, he had to redo his church history before he was allowed. And I'm not joking, that was what was asked from him. But anyway, so we were in the Hervormde Kerk, and we were working together in one huge congregation. So we quickly separate the things that we don't like. So Willem did the administration, the social part, and he would see over the building of the mega church complex that we were developing there, and he also did the marriages. I would do the funerals, the hospitals, the trauma counseling, and the rest of the stuff we just split. You're asking what was interesting, maybe, and not only then, even today, the miracles I experienced in the time that I did trauma counseling, bereavement counseling, people on their deathbeds. I can write a book actually about those things, and they are still with me. Those experiences are still with me.
Now, with that positive part of your life, then you decided to go into academia in the early 2000s. Now, was that a difficult decision, and how did your pastoral experience inform your approach to theological education?
Leaving ministry was not a difficult decision. The management of the congregation, my marriage, and raising two small active children was just too much. So by the time that we decided to quit, we were on breakpoint, all of us. So that was easy. The problem was the consequences. We end up without a home, without money, without a job, and seemingly without a future. It was a difficult time. My children were small, and we had difficult to cope. But again, the open-mindedness that came from a long way back helped us to get through it. And today, if you ask my children, they would say that that time of humiliation and suffering actually saved them from being brats and make them the humans that they are today. So yeah, there's still some things that we take with us, even if you leave something behind.
Well, that's an interesting history, and I think it prepared you for academia, the fact that you had two histories in the church and you had to have a look at from different angles and get to different results from that. But then let's focus on your academic work. In 25 you wrote an article about the impact of Christian education in the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republiek. Now, that's quite fascinating historically. So what made you focus on Christian education, and especially in that time frame?
Well, by that time, South Africa changed. You know, I grew up in a totally different world where Christianity was part of my education at home, at school, and at church. This happened not after 1994, and I saw the change in my own children. And then also when I was in the church, still in the ministry, but when I come to the academic world, I also see that there's no education, there's no religious education. And if there are people who have some education, it's limited. So I decided again to go back to the sources to see what changed from the old ZRR, where education, religion and government was actually one, to where we are in 2005, where these things are not connected. And that's why I wrote on those issues.
Well, you received the David Bosch prestige bursary in 25, which is quite a significant recognition. Now, you're a historian, he was a missionary scientist. So what exactly, how did he influence your thinking about religion and academia and your later research about change agency?
Professor Bosch said that mission is a journey. He also said that we must get our hands dirty, that this thing of top to bottom is not working. The church cannot be there and society is here and think that you will have an impact. And that is the first things that bring the thing to me, the concept to me of change agency. If I want to teach, there must be an impact. And I have to look at what I can do and what can I teach my students to be active and be change agents.
And in the following year, 26, you wrote an article about Afrikaner spirituality, which is a complex mixture, according to you. And you were quite widely cited, more than 22 citations for that. Now, currently there's a whole discussion within the Afrikaner community, and there are different ways of having a look at reality. But what motivated you to explore Afrikaner spirituality in a historical, or in a specific historic time frame? So, what was this complex mixture that you got from that article?
You see, Afrikaners is a mixed race. That's what my son called us. My grandfather, who fought in the rebellion of 1914, always said that Afrikaners will never be a nation because the blood is coming from everywhere. You know, we have blood from almost every nation on earth inside our DNA pool. And he said that's the problem why we cannot unite. But it's not only that. Afrikaner spirituality, we normally say, and you will see it in academic works, that the assumption is that the spirituality is founded on Calvinistic principles. But that's not really true. Calvinistic things are there, but there's also Lutherans, there's Roman Catholics, there's other religions. I would explain it and say that it's like rivers. All rivers coming together and then mixed into a dam. But you would suspect that in the dam it will be just water, but it's not. It's colored water, it's oil, it's debris, whatever. And that is what I said. Afrikaner spirituality is not a single thing, it's not easy to describe. There's a lot of things that are speaking into Christian spirituality. And if we don't understand that, you can't understand the Afrikaner. And that is why I thought at that stage, in 2004, the Interkerklike Commissie, it's the Interchurch Council, who was established in 1939 to bring the three traditional Afrikaans-speaking churches together, decided that they will never get to do that. So that was actually in reaction to that thing that happened. They decided to put it away, and that is where my investigation started for that publication.
I must say I feel much more at home in a kind of a diverse situation than a monolithic one, so that's quite good to my mind. Now, the next year, you, in 26 and 2010, you published two very interesting articles. The one is about Sunday school, past and present, and then the other one, once again, about Afrikaner Christianity and the concept of empire. Now, so it seems to me you work on faith, you work on education, you work on power structures. What exactly did you find in these trajectories?
I don't think I did it on purpose. I think these themes just merge into one thing and telling me that Sunday school, like I had the experience, was no more. And so what changed and what happened? And so it was not intentional, but I've been accused of being all over the place. But on the other hand, if you're not all over the place, then you're not a Christian, because my beliefs and my character as a Christian speaks into every single aspect of my life. And that's why I always say, let me be. If I have something to say, I will.
Well, it seems to me your following article in 2011, which was South Africa, the arduous task of facing our religious past, addresses colonialism and theology directly. So now this, you at that stage just became a professor or associate professor, and it seems to me you ventured on difficult ground. What did you find in that article?
It's not only Professor Bos who influenced me. You must remember that Professor Ferdinand Deist was also a Unisian. And he, with his critical reflection on the naive interpretation of biblical texts to justify sin, somehow just got into my reading space. And I decided, okay, so let's work on that. And yeah, I've got some negative responses, but you know, I think if I have to say something, I have to say it.
Well, that's interesting. I think if everyone agrees with you, then you actually haven't said anything. So it's good to get to that. Now, in 2017, you co-authored with your husband Willem Oliver something on the colonization of South Africa, a unique case. And well, this is your most cited work, 189 citations. Now, can you explain what makes South African colonization theologically unique, and why do you think this article resonated so much with other researchers?
You know, there's a saying that say that until the lions are trained to write, history will be from the point of the hunter. And in South Africa, that is exactly what happened. We had history in the previous millennium written from the South Afrikaner point of view. And then things changed, and everything changed. I was shocked to see some of the stuff that my children had to learn in school. The curriculum changed drastically. So me and Willem started investigating some things and say, okay, if they say this and we learned that, where's the truth? We will be open-minded, but we want to see what actually happened. And that is where we investigate this and saw that South Africa actually has 4 colonization phases. And yeah, it gets, even today, citations, some of them negative, some of them positive, but if we can just trigger people and academics just to see from an alternative perspective, then I think that was a good publication.
Now, if you talk about colonization, and these days there are talks about decolonization, how does those 4 colonizations and current decolonization, how do they talk to each other?
That's a problem, they don't. If you don't see the difference between those 4 colonization phases and you just put it into one pool, because they are not the same. They were not coming from the same people with the same intentions. And decolonization often fall into that pitfall of doing decolonization as a whole. And maybe if you read the article, you can understand that it's a very complex action to do decolonization actually.
Well, apart from that article, you co-authored quite a lot with your husband Willem Oliver, including work on God's unity, the Trinity, Sola Scriptura, and Afrikaner history. Now, is it difficult to work together with someone so close to you? Is it exciting? How do you work, co-author with someone?
Yeah, luckily we are used to working together, so we have some fun, and normally we share the same passions for a historic view and also for theology. But you must remember, Willem's first love and academic qualifications was in Greek, and so he has a historical background, and I ended up in his lecture hall when he was a lecturer in Greek, when I failed Greek 1 the third time, and that's actually how we met. Okay, so and Willem's second, his doctorate was in early church history in the African continent. So history is there and theology is there, so we work actually very nice, but on some things we don't see eye to eye. And then he published on his own and I will publish on my own. That's it.
All right, you also published with scholars like Jacques Tron, and the one article in 2018 was about changing perspectives on the Crusades. Now, how do you approach interdisciplinarity?
Yes, with Pastor Tron it was easy because it was on the crusade, so that was not so bad. But recently I published with another student on a comparison between Paul the Apostle and Tahiri from the Baha'i faith in Iran. And I had to do serious research. I even had to ask an expert from the Baha'i faith to check my facts and help me to get through that stage. Well, it was published, and it's nice to work interdisciplinary. I think it's also open your mind and open your eyes for other people, other religions, and other things that you, well, before I met that student, I didn't even know about the Baha'i. So, yeah, it's good.
Well, going into the disciplinary, that's very exciting and enriching. But do you see a kind of a thread in your research and work in history?
Yeah, if you don't know where you come from, that's what I think, then you don't have an anchor. Our history is our anchor. But we also need to have guides for the way forward. You know, when you read the Bible, you see the prophets and you read about the prophets and they proclaim what's going to happen because the people don't listen. And then eventually, because they don't listen, something happened bad. But we do the same, exactly the same thing. We don't listen when people are forecasting things and saying, you must beware of this and this. That's the one thing. The other thing, there's lessons to be learned in history. And if we do take care and take note of them, then we can avoid pitfalls in the future. So history is not the past. The history is living through me and you and our children.
Yeah, well, it seems to me if you understand history, you don't just kind of knee-jerk react to current events. I see in your 2019 article the traditional Afrikaans-speaking churches in dire straits, and also religious Afrikaners, irreligious in conflict. So I think a lot of things are going on currently, and people are wondering, where are they, why are we here, and so on. And it seems to me history gives you a little bit of a longer time frame so that you can understand and not just react.
Exactly. That's the biggest problem that we have, is that we tend to instantly react and not sit back, think, and then decide, okay, I have options 1, 2, 3, and 4. What can I learn from this option, from that option? Is there evidence that that worked, and is there evidence that this did not work? So that is the cautionary thing that we want to do from the perspective from history, but projecting it forward and bring it to the current lives and the current issues that people have, and then make suggestions or let them think it out for themselves.
Now, you started off talking about the influence of Sunday school, and it seems to me you don't get away from education and Sunday school and stuff, and because from history you are now very involved in distance e-learning and so on, and in 2013 you enrolled for this combined Masters in Education in ODL, Open Distance Learning, at the University of Maryland and also the University College and UNISA. So what drove you to already having a doctorate and being a professor, starting again with a Masters in Education?
Well, first of all, you were only allowed to enroll for that course if you had a doctorate. But no, you see, people are appointed at the university for their speciality knowledge, not for teaching. But the main core of their appointment is to teach. So I knew I had a gap. I need to do something to get the teaching experience and the foundational work that I needed. And then when this course was advertised, it was emphasis that we also will do technology. And I knew by then technology is coming and I need to be prepared for this. So I jumped at the opportunity, and I never looked back since then.
Something is happening right now. Across every boardroom, every bank, every small business, every institution on this continent, the rules are changing. Artificial intelligence isn't coming, it's already here. And the question isn't whether it will reshape your industry. The question is, will you be the one leading that change? Most leaders know AI matters, but knowing it matters and knowing what to do about it, that's a very different thing. The gap between those who understand AI and those who don't is becoming the most dangerous gap in business today. Introducing AI for Leaders, a 6-session short learning program developed by the Institute for Technology Strategy and Innovation in partnership with NWU Business School. Designed for leaders and entrepreneurs across Africa, practical, focused, immediately applicable. Over 12 weeks, you'll go from understanding the foundations of AI to mastering prompt engineering, the art of getting AI to do exactly what you need, to using AI to supercharge your personal productivity in tools you already use every day, to exploring the cutting edge, agents that work autonomously, making decisions, executing tasks, and transforming your business processes while you focus on strategy. You'll learn from world-class facilitators, engineers, professors, entrepreneurs, and journalists who live at the intersection of technology and business. Guest lecturers at Cornell, Northwestern, and Cambridge University. Practitioners who have shaped the conversation on AI across Africa and beyond. Complete the program, and you won't just have a certificate registered with Northwest University. You'll have the confidence, the language, and the strategy to lead AI adoption in your organization. And because this program qualifies under the Skills Development Levy, your company can fund it as part of your training spend. The leaders who will define Africa's digital future are learning right now. The only question left is, are you one of them?
Well, in 2013 you wrote an article, Teaching Open Distance Learning Undergraduates in Theology to Become Effective Change Agents. So that is quite once again, the power, and that there must be something that happens because of your teaching. So that seems to be a market turning point. Now, once again, how did your pastoral and theological expertise intersect with distance education pedagogy?
We were sitting at the table planning ahead. That was 2013. And in 2015, the 500-year anniversary of the Protestant Reformation was coming up. So we decided we would look into the history and find some things. We don't want to just celebrate it, we want to have something that we can use. And the two words that came up from the Reformation is transformation and change agency. So immediately I started to develop a second-year module on change agency. And luckily by then, UNISA gave me an opportunity to change the module completely and to change the assessment plan completely. That was one of 8 modules that was allowed to do this. So I changed the assessment plan. I told the students, from all that I have taught you, and for all that you have learned, I want you to do a project. Identify a small project where you can change things, and I want the feedback. So I did not fail them if the project did not work. I wanted them to take responsibility, to identify what worked and what not work. And I want them to see that not all that we plan works out, but in the end, I want to see the results and I want sustainability. That worked perfectly. We ran that program for 8 years. And I can tell you, I don't think I have had a single student that failed that module. It was a great success. And then, of course, we had the Change Agency project that was linked to 2015's 500-year celebration. And there we had a journal supplement that ran for 5 years.
Now, what exactly do you mean by being a change agent?
Being a change agent, I wanted the students to see that I can be a Christian who help other people without proclaiming my faith by saying I'm a Christian, by helping, by making things better. I can give you an example. In the olden days, you would remember, we had postal guys who came and put in the post and take out the post and go and back. Now, one of them used to sit in my office, and I asked him, "Why are you not studying?" And eventually, he started with one of those modules that I wrote, and he was commuting from our offices over weekends to the rural areas where he stayed. So the project that he did is he bought chickens at the chicken farm, take them home, sell them there. After he graduated, I've got an email from him, a lot of photos. He said, "Prof, I couldn't find work. But you know what? Your project made me a chicken farmer. Look at this." So that is what I want to do with Change Agency. I want to help people to find something for themselves, something that it's good for them, but it's also good for the community and good to solve problems.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. If you change yourself, then you can change your world.
Yes.
All right, so it seems to me in your research you make use of a lot of technology, and you wrote 3 articles, between 2014 and 2018. Theological education with the help of technology, the next one in 2016, a move towards hoitagogy and to empower theology students, and in 2017, something about gamification. Now, what convinced you that technology and gaming could transform theological education?
Well, we did a little experiment. Something that I saw, not first with my students, but with my children, because they have a lack of geography. They don't work anymore with a map. They can't place and link facts, people and places. So we started with a little game, and I tested with my first year students. So the question in the exam was, what was the influence of the African catechetical school headmasters on the Rome in the development of Christianity? But that was not what that was what they learned and what was in their handbooks, but that was not how I formulated it. So I just formulated in another way, and they should have linked African and Rome to each other and then get to the headmasters. But they couldn't, because they couldn't tell or understand that Alexandria is actually in Africa. You understand? So we had to play games, and they actually enjoyed it very much. And then we understand, okay, they learn, and they learn quickly. If you just give some fun, add to the text and the things. And I could not, again, find a question that they couldn't do afterwards. So that group convinced me, if you take the time to do some things and help them through a game or game-like simulation, they will react and they will learn.
Well, it seems your article about gamification has got 75 citations, which is quite impactful. Now, what were your students' reactions to being taught gamification in this? You already said it actually helped them, but were they kind of stunned by it? Did they take to it, or were they resistance?
The thing is, when you speak of gamification, that's not actually games. Gamification is more game-like elements that you bring into the teaching. Say things like leaderboards, like badges, like extra credits. The students love them, I can tell you. So for extra credits, I would tell them to find some stuff on Minecraft. And they can get extra credits for that. Micro-credentials, that's coming up very, very soon. Maybe next year, SAQA will accredit micro-credentials. So that's the game-like elements that motivate the students, but they are optional. They are always optional. And then also, it motivates the students. They like it. The problem is, we don't have the time always to invent these things, to manage them, and to do the admin for the students. But game-like elements is definitely working.
Well, that resonates to me, because understanding the brain and dopamine, which is about something that secretes when you reach mileposts. That's what gamification is. So you are now teaching in accordance to how the brain wants to learn, or learns easily. So, well, you also use the term heutagogy. Now, we all know the term pedagogy. Now, why do you use the term heutagogy, and what does that mean, and how does that help you?
Heutagogy is self-determined learning. If you are a lecturer in theology at UNISA, you must remember that our approach is not denominational. We are ecumenical. So in a class of 20 or 50 people, you will have 10 or 20 denominations. So I cannot help every single student in their denomination, in their pathways forward. So self-determined learning is very important. I give the parameters, but you will do it from, say, the Dutch Reformed, but somebody else will do it from the Roman Catholic way. So that is what we do there. We support the students within the parameters, but they have to choose their own pathway and take responsibility for that, which means that they have to get also the content, because we can't provide all the content. But I think it's also a good idea to make the students aware of the fact that they must be responsible while they are in university, but also afterwards, to keep on learning and keep on researching on their own, to grow and to develop.
Yeah, well, I expected from a university to be at the forefront and cutting edge, but my experience at university is that they're actually sometimes lagging behind. They are very, very fixed in their ways in doing, and now in 2018 your articles were on digital game-based learning and blended learning for teaching theology. So it means you were cutting edge, that you experienced it quite difficult to change people?
I think maybe I saw myself on the cutting edge, but UNISA has a way to bring you back to earth. Nobody was interested. The students were very interested, and there were people who said we can help, but gamification, if you do it right, cost money, and the university was just say no, so it didn't really work. And then of course the other thing is you need time. That is, curriculum development is time consuming in itself. If you bring in gamification or an actual game, it is very time consuming. So it didn't really work. The small pilot things work, but it never came into the mainstream of CHS, College of Human Sciences, or even the university.
Now, if I want to ask a difficult question, do you think now with the emergence of AI, something like this might happen now, taking less time to develop something like this? And actually, because students are using it so widely, the lecturers will have to follow.
Exactly. The students are far ahead. And some of them actually said they can help me, but I can't say, okay, please help me with this, but you have to study. Then I am stealing their time. So yeah, but maybe AI can help us. Actually, if you use AI right, why not? It can be very helpful. I think the university is going to change very soon, or else there's no future for them.
No, exactly. Now, then let's stop at your triangle, because that's I think that's close to your heart. So in 2019 you published The Triangle of Effective Education Implemented for Theology. Now, what is the triangle all about, and how does this develop, and how does this link to ODL, Open Distance Learning?
When you speak at university, the thing is, the core business is teaching and learning. That's the term. And ever since I started there, I said that can't be. Teaching, learning, where's assessment? Is it part of teaching? Is it part of learning? No, it's part of both. But where is it, and how are we doing this? So I decided to work a little bit on the teaching and learning stuff, and then I came up somehow, if you have teaching and a part of it is assessment, and you have learning here and a part of that is assessment, then it will find its way up to the pinnacle. Because if you want to see or to prove that learning actually did take place, you have to assess, because that is where your proof is. And maybe with all people, most students maybe, they want a certificate, they want a degree, they don't want to learn, they don't want to change. But if I have to teach you, you have to change before I can give you a pass rate. And that's why I started with this mini triangle. But then when you go to ODL, what you ask, the triangle had to expand. It expanded to student-centered teaching because students at ODL are not a uniform group. It expanded to interactive learning because learning is also not just giving a handbook and that's what you learn. And then it expands to transformative assessment where the change comes in. And that is the model that I have for the ODL.
Well, I think that is definitely going to change also in the light of AI, because teaching is going to change dramatically and assessment needs to change dramatically. So if we don't teach students how to learn, then they are not going to know how to get past AI in a way that is actually conducive to learning. But let's talk about your work because you did quite a lot of work as editor or sub-editor of volumes. And can you talk about that part of your life? Because I think that's quite impactful. You give the opportunity to other scholars to publish because you create a platform for that.
Exactly. Yes, I do have actually a vast experience. I started when I was still studying to be an editorial assistant for HTS, Hervormde Theologische Studies. And later on, I was also a sub-editor for the supplemental. But today, I am the editor and sub-editor actually, and then also the journal manager for a very new journal called JEXT, Journal of Exotechnology and Education. And you just talked about AI. So in that journal, we give an opportunity for academics and upcoming academics to publish in different formats, because I think that is the way forward. The old systems of education is no longer actively and no longer working. So we are sitting talking to each other. Why can't that be a publication? Podcasts, videos, games. If we're speaking about games, how would people know I have a game on plagiarism or a game on detecting AI when I do my exams? So those things can now be published in a new format, in a new platform. And I think that is the way forward for academic writing.
Well, I can't agree more because the old ways, I think, is just not really working anymore. And you know, the fact that you publish and so few citations you get from that means people actually don't read it. So we have to change the ways in accordance to the events in time and technology development. Before we continue, let me tell you about a journal that's rethinking what academic publishing can be. The Journal of Exotechnology and Education, or JEXT in short, isn't your typical academic journal. This open access, peer-reviewed publication welcomes not just traditional articles, but also videos, games, podcasts, apps, animations, and even works in progress. If you are researching cutting-edge technology in education and want to show your work in motion rather than just describe it, this is your platform. And here's the best part. While we are awaiting accreditation, there are no page fees. All content is freely available under Creative Commons licensing, so your research reaches everyone who needs it. Ready to publish something truly innovative? Email Erna at olivee@unisa.ac.za. That is olivee@unisa.ac.za, or visit their website to learn more. And that's JEXT, where educational technology research breaks free from static pages. All right, now let's talk about your Future Fit ODEL project. So what is the your current major initiative, which is this Future Fit ODL project. And you talk about the bifurcated triangle of effective education. Why did you, what is behind this, and what led you to go into this way as a historian as well?
Okay, so I started with this small triangle that I mentioned earlier, and then it expanded to the ODL model. And then I also see and experience, you know what, we at universities think that if we give subject-specific information, that the students will learn, they will pass, they will change. And that's not the case. We need to be more proactive. And now we have the academic triangle of student-centered teaching, interactive learning, and transformative assessment. But that's not enough. We also have to have a separate triangle that is actually duplicating this one, but not in academic terms. So, who are the students? What can they do? Do they have time management skills? Do they know what their strong point is? Curiosity, something that you speak often about. Are they curious? Something like that? So the student need to know who they are. And then only if you know who you are, you can have your relationships with other people, with networks, with teams, things that they will have to work with when they graduate. So that's now the first point of the second triangle. And then interactive learning is the cognitive things. Students don't know how to learn. We need also to teach them to think, to be critical, analytical, to be creative. We must, well, not only teach them, but let those things come alive and let them explore and say, okay, but I'm good at this, I'm good at this. I can do my assessment in this way. I don't have to write or type on the computer. And then for the assessment part, we have skills. Skills, knowledge, how do they act? Things that we need to help them with. English, that's, I think, in South Africa, a huge thing for all of us. I can't even speak English. And then also how to write in academic writing styles, how to use the digital world, media, everything. So if you can help the student with these 3 points, then the other triangle will be much easier for them, especially first-year students, to be successful. So that is my current project, those 2 triangles standing next to each other.
I must say I can't agree more with you, because if you just give content, you're not doing your work. If you actually teach students to become lifelong learners and how to manage content, then you actually gave them something that doesn't run out of fashion or isn't getting old in terms of knowledge. So, but it seems to me there are quite a lot of revolutions going on, and you talk about 6 major fourth revolutions. Now, that's a term that I haven't come across previously. What do you mean by that?
Well, most people know about the 4th industrial revolution, but you must remember there's also a communication revolution. People, the first one was speaking, the second one was writing, the third one was printing, and now we have digital. So there's a lot of them. It's not only the communication one that took thousands of years to develop, and then the industrial revolutions that took a little time. But there's 6 major ones of them. I also published on that, so if you want to go and read it. But these things happen around us, and I don't think students or we as lecturers actually are aware of the impact that the revolutions are causing. We know about the 4IR, yes, that's it, but it's not the only one. We have to change our communication methods, and we have to change our education methods. We are in, not South Africa, but Education 4 is on the table. So what are we going to do about that? And we have to take note, because those things draw us out of our comfort zones. It brings cognitive dissonance, and we need to search answers for that. And I think that is why it's also important when we look at the restructuring and the transformation of education to take note of those 6 revolutions.
What is Education 4? What does that mean?
Well, Education 4 is not what we have. You know, Education 1 is educator-centered, which we grew up with then. And then there's interaction in Education 2, Education 3 brought in some technology and things, but Education 4 is still developing. It is collaboration, it is creation, but the problem is we look at Bloom's taxonomy. Creation is at the top, at the one that they reworked. But what about evaluation of creation? Maybe we should turn back to that. And I think that is what will happen in Education 4, because I can create, but we still have to evaluate and see if that what was created is okay, is true, is open, and things like that. So we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet, but it's coming.
Well, I believe being an educator is almost like Einstein's formula, E equals mc squared. You know, we are mc squared, a mentor, companion, and coach. So a mentor gives information, a companion kind of guides you through the process, but the coach actually takes your time. So that's evaluation. So that's exactly what needs to be done, and we need to be re-educated as educators to not be the sage on the stage, but kind of a companion and a mentor and a coach.
Exactly.
So, but in terms of that, you quote Alvin Toffler from 55 years ago about something that he said that people need now to, if you want to know, you must know how to learn, unlearn and relearn. So is that still applicable?
I'm a historian. 50 years back is yesterday. Well, anyway, yes, it is. And I think, again, what I said earlier, if we look back, we can see what was said to us, but we did not listen. On the front page of Toffler's book, Future Shock is the name of the book, he said, he predicts mass bewilderment caused by the rapid change that was coming. And I think we are experiencing that bewilderment, really. In our personal lives, things that change and things, our work hours. I don't know, I know you work 20 hours a day or more because I send you emails at the middle of the night and you respond. So we are in a rat race. We are constantly on digital media. We are always available. And I think bewilderment is quite a nice term that he used to tell us this is coming. He already said that 50 years ago. Did we take notice? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, this bewilderment, I think one of the reasons you talk about communication is that's why people currently, when they communicate, it's in tweets. You know, so it's this short ones. You don't want to go into the complexities and so forth, and I think that's quite a reason why people do it like that. They don't want to be bewildered, so they want to have short answers, and that's it. Okay, so let's get to your double triangle model. You know, you talk about level 1 as the flexible triangle, and level 2 is the toolkit for student success. So quickly, just talk us through that.
Okay, so the toolkit is actually a duplicate triangle just fitting over the academic triangle. And where my problem and project at this moment is to develop that second triangle, to get the students to the self-knowledge, to help them to learn to think, and then eventually get them to skills and thinking, even if it's not related to their degree, but then they will be future fit. And that is where the focus is at that moment.
Now talk to us about the student, because you say that only 12% of the grade 1 learners actually make it to university, and then only 4% graduate. So why is that?
Because they don't get a comprehensive education that is fit for the time that we are living in. And that is what I think we need to give the students to bridge the gap between high school and university. And it's not academic. Yes, there is academic issues, but we can work through the first year in education. The students need to know things. They need to, this triangle of mine will work with a diagnostical test. So the students will first do the test, and then they will see, say for instance, I do the test and I see that my time management is minimal. Then I can do the course and I can try to get myself empowered to do better time management. So it's not part of the curriculum at all, but eventually it will have an influence on the pass rate of that module if I can succeed to help that student with time management. Maybe another student will have a low self-esteem and think, I can't do it. I'm the first in my family, in the whole history. I'm not going to make it. So help that student in that way. And I think the emphasis must be on the student, on helping them to bridge the gaps and help them to become successful graduates in life.
Now, how do you see this practically working? They kind of enroll for theology or your course in church history. Are these courses something that they do on another level, or is it part and parcel? Do you kind of use your course as a example how they can do this? In practicality, in practical terms, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I have 3 universities working with me on this. It's the Open University of Zimbabwe, the Open University of Botswana, and the ANT, Agricultural and Technological State University of North Carolina. All of them are open distance learning universities. All of them has the same problem, that the first years are failing. And that is why we will work together. So I will have a pilot study with my students, and they would probably have the same thing with their students. And if it's working, we actually want to get eventually to an automated thing, something that anybody can do. Every student anywhere can do it. But for now it will be in the universities, but it will be optional. I think also students can choose. You see, you can see, all right, I have learning problems, for instance, or I'm struggling to learn, so let me do this. I can't force students to add 25 small courses on what they already have to do. But I think if they reap the fruits from doing 1 or 2 of those courses, they would actually do all of them, or most of them, or whatever they need. That's what we want to do.
Well, with the whole idea of micro-credentials, maybe they can choose to do quite a lot of that, and that will contribute to their degree. And
eventually that is what we hope for, yes.
Yeah. Well, Erna, that was actually really, really interesting. A last question. If you look back to history, you must also look forward to the future. What do you still want to accomplish in the final part or decade or two of your academic career? What would you like to leave as a legacy?
You know, we started this conversation with me referring to a minister who not only gave me words of encouragement, but actually get something done and put my life on a trajectory that I never dreamed of. So if legacy would be that if students look back at UNISA, that they would say there was somebody who not only spoke words, not only motivate over the internet, but actually helped me to develop and grow to the person that I am today. That would be absolutely wonderful.
Well, that's stunning. Thank you, Erna. And here we talk to Professor Erna Oliver, someone who looked to the past, to the history, but is firmly looking towards the future and a new future where she is changing the lives of the students that are still to come, and that we thank you for. Thank you, Erna.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ghost. It was a privilege and an honor to be here.
If you are involved in research that you would like to share with the rest of the world, please contact us on knowledgehub@blue-marble.co.za.